You didn't believe she was dead?
For a long time, I just refused to accept that she was gone. Part of, she would never do this to us, but also part of, maybe this is all part of a plan.
What started out as a quiet, almost boring announcement from Buckingham Palace suddenly turned into one of the most emotional royal stories of the decade. Princess Diana, loved by millions, has rested in peace for nearly 30 years, untouched in her private grave. But now, a shocking update from the royal family about her burial site has caught everyone completely off guard. It all began with a bit of a whisper before the storm. On a gray Tuesday morning, the palace dropped a press release that barely made a ripple at first. There was no big press event, no camera flashes, no fancy speech, just a plain, cold digital notice with the Buckingham Palace crest quietly sitting at the top. It felt distant and official, but it landed like a bombshell. Most people who saw it probably skimmed the first few lines thinking it was just another bland update. Maybe something about repairs at Kensington Palace or a charity event led by the Prince of Wales. But hidden deep in the middle of that carefully worded message, wrapped up in polite language, was one chilling line that hit like thunder in a quiet sky. Given recent developments regarding Princess Diana's burial site, the royal household is reviewing materials that may lead to a formal investigation. There it was, calm, collected, and almost too polite. But beneath those words was something huge. It hinted at a major shakeup, as if something buried a long time ago, both literally and emotionally, was now being dug up again. It's been more than 25 years since the world came to a halt to mourn her death on August 31st, 1997. That heartbreaking day is still burned into people's minds. Over 2.5 billion people watched her funeral, an unforgettable moment that felt like the whole world was grieving together. Now suddenly, those quiet formal words from the palace dragged us right back into the past, right into the sadness, the mystery, and the questions that never really went away. The timing couldn't have been more surprising. King Charles is currently dealing with cancer. Prince William has taken on more royal duties than ever. The monarchy is being watched more closely than it has in years. And yet, out came this tiny line in an official document that sliced through all of that like a knife through silk. Instantly, the rumors exploded. What on earth sparked this? Had new information come to light? Was it politics? Some odd forensic discovery? Or was it something even more unsettling? For many, it brought back old suspicions. The car crash in Paris, the mystery figures, the strange inconsistencies in the reports, and the heavy silence that followed. Others felt it was just wrong, a cruel disturbance to someone who had already suffered so much in life. But no matter what people thought, everyone agreed on one thing. Something big was brewing, bigger than anyone had imagined. The way Princess Diana was buried has always stirred up strong feelings. The day after her death, it was like time froze. Around the world, candle-lit vigils lit up the night like stars that had fallen from the sky. People cried openly on live TV. Children held newspaper cuttings close to their hearts. Even news presenters struggled to keep their emotions in check. This wasn't just the loss of a princess. It felt like the loss of a symbol. Diana stood for kindness, defiance within the royal world, and a sense of realness wrapped in glittering crowns. But it was what came after her death that has kept the whispers alive. Normally, royals are buried with grand ceremonies, often in places like Westminster Abbey or St. George's Chapel, famous spots full of royal history. But Diana, once married to a future king and mother to another, didn't get that traditional send-off. Instead, she was buried alone, on a peaceful little island surrounded by trees in the middle of the Oval Lake at Althorp, her family's estate. Yes, it's quiet and beautiful, but to some, it feels more like she was hidden away than honored. No one's allowed to visit. There are no public tours. People can only see it from a distance, across the water. Visitors can only catch a glimpse of Diana's resting place from across the lake. There are no guided tours, no walkways leading to the grave, just a distant view. While some say the burial site is peaceful and respectful, others feel the total seclusion makes it almost too distant, almost unreal. It's like the public's bond with her was quietly pushed out of reach. Back then, Diana's younger brother, Charles Spencer, was very clear about why the family made that choice. "She deserves a place of peace, not spectacle," he said during her emotional eulogy, his voice cracking as he spoke. "Somewhere she can finally be safe." But behind the scenes, things weren't so calm. Recently released internal documents from 1997, made public through a Freedom of Information request, show a very different side of the story. Letters passed between palace aides and top members of the Spencer family hint at serious disagreements. The royal family apparently pushed for a more traditional royal burial, not necessarily at Westminster Abbey, but certainly somewhere more accessible. The Spencers pushed back, pointing to Diana's complicated relationship with the royal world. Even more curious, a private diary entry reportedly written by one of Diana's close friends revealed something shocking. In the months before her death, Diana had allegedly confided her own wishes for her final resting place. "If something happens to me," she supposedly wrote, "I don't want to be left in that place. I belong somewhere the people can find me." She meant Althorp. And yet, the place she ended up was protected like a royal vault, outfitted with security cameras, motion sensors, alarms, and even armed guards. Some reports even claimed guards were posted underwater to stop anyone from approaching the island from beneath the lake. Why all the secrecy for someone who had always lived so openly? This was a woman who walked through crowds without fear, hugged children, touched the sick, and broke royal tradition in the name of kindness. The public was told it was all about privacy, about keeping her dignity intact, about making sure her grave didn't turn into a media frenzy. But that explanation is starting to crumble as more details come to light. Back in 2017, a quiet reevaluation by French authorities, one never officially addressed in public, uncovered some troubling inconsistencies. Their confidential report noted major timeline issues between the crash in Paris and the transport of Diana's body. She was flown back to the UK faster than anyone expected. So fast, in fact, that some of the standard post-mortem procedures were skipped. Toxicology samples were limited. No independent forensic checks were done. And her coffin? It was sealed shut with lead, making any future exhumation nearly impossible without disturbing the remains. Which brings us to the question that never seems to go away. Why the hurry? Some say it was all about keeping control, about managing the story in a way that suited both the monarchy and Diana's family. The Spencers wanted to shield her. The royals wanted to keep things contained. Others think something far more unsettling might be behind it all, something Diana knew or planned to share before her death. Because by that time, Diana wasn't just a princess. She was a powerhouse, a wild card, a global icon no longer under the thumb of the firm. Her relationship with Dodi Al-Fayed, her work on landmines, aids, and causes far beyond royal oversight, it all made her unpredictable, maybe even dangerous in the eyes of the establishment. There were whispers that she was planning to move to the United States, to rebuild her public image and carve out a brand new role on the world stage. All of that may have made her more of a threat than the royal family was prepared to handle. So was burying her at Althorp really about peace and privacy? Or was it about keeping her legacy, her real legacy, quietly tucked away, out of reach? As her island remains sealed off to the world, so too does the truth. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly the way someone wanted it. The secret under the lake. Earlier this year, what was meant to be a simple checkup on the Althorp Estate's ornamental lake turned into something much stranger. A routine erosion control assessment had engineers inspecting the shoreline and planning for a bit of long overdue maintenance. But what they found was anything but routine. As part of the routine maintenance around Althorp's ornamental lake, sonar scans were quietly carried out beneath the small, man-made island. Yes, the very one where Princess Diana is buried. At first, engineers thought they'd picked up nothing more than some old structural work, maybe leftover supports designed to stop water from damaging the site over time. But the scan results told a very different story. Beneath the surface, buried deep under layers of stone and silt, they discovered something completely unexpected: a sealed concrete vault. It was large, clearly man-made, and most bizarrely of all, there wasn't a single record of it. It didn't appear on any estate plans, burial documents, or architectural logs from when Diana was reinterred back in 1997. The thing wasn't just a mystery. It felt intentional. And it wasn't shaped like a normal tomb or vault either. This wasn't just a simple box. It was oddly geometric, like a puzzle made out of stone. Internal echo scans picked up hollow spaces inside. Compartments, chambers, layers. It looked like something built with serious planning, not just dumped there for storage. Concerned by the find, local officials flagged it up the chain. But before word could spread too far, the Crown stepped in. Fast. In a carefully coordinated and very quiet move, the royal household brought in a hand-picked team. Historical experts, archaeologists, and high-level structural analysts. They were all under strict non-disclosure orders. No talking, no leaking, no exceptions. Their mission? Figure out what the vault was, why it was there, and whether it posed any sort of risk, physical, historical, or reputational. For several days, the team worked quietly under cover of darkness. No bright lights, no noise, just silent movements across the estate, late at night. When they finally submitted a private report to the palace, the message was chilling. The contents of the vault didn't match anything that was supposed to be there. Nothing listed in the official 1997 burial records could explain what they'd found. What was in that vault? Why had it never been mentioned? And who knew about it? Those answers, for now, remain locked away. But the impact was immediate. It shook the royal family to its core. Before the public even had a clue, King Charles took action. According to insiders, it was Charles himself, no aides, no intermediaries, who personally picked up the phone to call his sons. The calls weren't scheduled. No staff filtered the messages. Just the king, sounding deeply serious, asking both William and Harry to come to Althorp. Within 3 days, both brothers were there. William arrived first, just as the sun was rising, his car rolling through the frost-covered grass of the Northamptonshire estate. He was flanked by top royal security and a few senior legal advisors. Harry, flying in from the US, landed a bit later. He brought his own tight security team and a private legal advisor who hadn't been seen at any royal event before. No reporters were alerted. No photographers were tipped off. The gates at Althorp quietly swung shut behind them, and for the next 7 hours, they stayed hidden from the world. Inside, they met with King Charles and Earl Spencer, Diana's brother and the one in charge of the estate. What was discussed inside those walls is still a complete mystery. Royal protocol protects conversations like that with a level of secrecy few institutions on Earth can match. But something clearly happened in that room. And whatever it was, it changed everything. One long-serving staff member who had been stationed near the side of the estate chapel whispered to a colleague that the brothers looked like they'd seen a ghost. William's face was pale and hollow. Harry looked tense, his jaw tight, his grip on the car door so firm his knuckles turned white. Neither of them spoke a word to the small group of staff who stood respectfully nearby. From that moment on, the mood inside royal circles shifted. The silence wasn't just about respect anymore. It felt loaded, like something was waiting just beneath the surface. Something big. Because whatever was under that lake, it had pulled William and Harry, two brothers drifting further apart with each passing year, right back into the heart of the same haunting story. Neither of the brothers had been ready for what came next. At exactly 4 p.m., GMT, the heavy double doors of the Buckingham Palace media wing creaked open, and out stepped Sir Malcolm Withers. Known for his icy poise and unwavering loyalty to the House of Windsor, Sir Malcolm was the palace's go-to crisis voice. But even he looked visibly rattled, his usual polished calm replaced by something more fragile, like he was holding back a tidal wave. Standing at the podium, he adjusted the microphone with deliberate care. Then, with a voice tight as piano wire, he delivered a sentence that would change everything. As part of our ongoing investigation into materials recently discovered at the Althorp estate, he said, pausing just long enough to let the weight settle, we are formally announcing that discussions are currently underway regarding the possible temporary opening of the tomb of Diana, Princess of Wales. The reaction was instant. Audible gasps, camera shutters, stunned silence rolling through the press room like a shockwave. This wasn't just a royal update. It was a seismic jolt, a line the monarchy had never dared to cross before. For the first time since that somber September day in 1997, When the world watched as Diana was laid to rest on a secluded island within her family's ancestral estate, her resting place was back in question. Not just in whispered rumors or late-night conspiracies, but out loud, officially. And nobody knew why. The palace refused to answer follow-up questions. No clarifications, no timeline, no indication of what exactly had sparked this. Just that something was found, and that it was serious enough to even consider the unthinkable, disturbing Diana's grave. Speculation exploded overnight. Some believed it was about letters, long-rumored personal writings sealed away with her, possibly revealing intimate truths or unfinished business. Others said it had to do with something placed there later, hidden deliberately. An object that didn't belong, maybe as a tribute, or maybe as a message. But then came the most chilling rumor of all. An anonymous insider, someone close to the team investigating the Althorpe vault, leaked a whisper: DNA verification. The implications sent ripples through the media, the monarchy, and the public psyche. Was someone questioning lineage, maternity, paternity? Or was this about something even more unthinkable? Some buried truth that could shake the royal family tree to its roots? When the live stream ended and the camera feeds cut, one thing was painfully clear. This wasn't just another palace press release. It was a spark in dry grass, a quiet ignition of something vast and unstoppable. And it didn't take long for the flames to find familiar fuel. The Paris connection, the crash, the questions, the conspiracy, came roaring back. For years, that night in 1997 had been wrapped in unease. Theories bubbled just beneath the surface, occasionally flaring up but never fully extinguished. Now, with fresh uncertainty around Diana's burial, those old suspicions were back with a vengeance. Once again, eyes turned toward Paris, not just out of grief or historical curiosity, but because something never sat right. Researchers, journalists, and a new wave of internet sleuths started digging again. They picked apart the original timeline, examining every photo, every document, every strange choice made in those chaotic hours after the crash. At the center of it all, the French autopsy. It was unusually brief, shockingly so for someone of Diana's global importance. Even stranger, key medical files had been sealed by French authorities, locked away, untouchable to both the public and independent forensic experts. Why? And then there was the embalming. Within hours of her death, Diana's body was embalmed in France, before a full post-mortem could be carried out in the UK. Forensic experts were stunned. Embalming not only speeds up the breakdown of tissue, it also destroys vital evidence. In legal and royal circles, that single decision sent alarm bells ringing. No one could explain it, not satisfactorily, not even now. Because for a royal figure whose life had been so meticulously recorded, such a rushed, irreversible procedure was more than unorthodox. It was almost unimaginable. A break in protocol, a legal blind spot. And maybe, just maybe, the moment the truth was sealed away for good. Now, with talks emerging about the possible reopening of Princess Diana's tomb for verification, what was once the stuff of whispered theories in obscure message boards and deep web forums had finally slipped into mainstream conversation. What had been dismissed as wild speculation had been handed a terrifying dose of plausibility. And with that, one question cut through the noise like a piercing siren. What if it's not her in the tomb? At first glance, the idea sounds like something ripped from the pages of a Hollywood script, impossible, grotesque, and utterly implausible. But when you start to piece together the facts, the speed of the embalming, the sealed French records, the delayed identification, and the resistance to further investigation, the once unthinkable suddenly doesn't seem so far-fetched. And somewhere in the eerie silence between these resurfaced whispers, a darker possibility began to grow. If it's not her in the tomb, then where is she? Or worse, what else have we been told that isn't true? As theories flood in and the royal family continues its ironclad silence, an unsettling truth settles in. When answers are withheld, speculation thrives. And in the case of Princess Diana's tomb, that silence has become deafening. What then did they find beneath Diana's final resting place? Of all the whispered possibilities, one theory has emerged as the most plausible, the most weighty. the recovery of Princess Diana's missing personal journal. For decades, rumors have circled about a deeply personal diary Diana kept. A diary that chronicled not only the collapse of her marriage to Prince Charles, but also her behind-the-scenes struggles with the royal family, her observations about royal protocol, and even ominous notes about her safety in the months leading up to her death. Royal insiders have speculated for years that this diary disappeared shortly after her passing. If it's now resurfaced, buried with her either by Diana's own wishes or by someone else, the contents could be catastrophic for the monarchy. Then there's the theory that sends chills down spines, not because of what it says, but because of what it implies. According to this narrative, there may be a second coffin beneath the one that holds the remains publicly believed to be Diana's. Some suggest this second coffin contains personal effects, her letters, favorite jewelry, or gifts from her sons. Others speculate it might hold decoys, royal records, or evidence too sensitive to be released. But the darkest version of this theory is the most unsettling. It suggests that Diana's actual remains were secretly relocated years ago, and that the current site at Althorpe is nothing more than a symbolic, tragic facade. Royal skeptics point to irregularities in the original burial process, the unusually fast handling of her remains, the lack of official photographic documentation during key moments, and even the absence of a formal, publicly accessible post-mortem. Some even propose that this second coffin was placed later, as part of a covert operation nobody was meant to uncover. Perhaps the most chilling theory is the one backed by hard evidence, the idea that someone tampered with the tomb after burial. Satellite imagery and ground-penetrating radar reportedly show anomalies in the substructure beneath Diana's memorial site. Insiders close to the ground-penetrating radar team claim a sealed vault appears to have been added sometime after 1997. If this vault wasn't part of the original burial plan, it suggests someone returned to the site, and the big question remains: why? No official statement has been made, no confirmation, no denial. The royal curtain remains firmly closed, and in the void, the world's imagination runs wild, spinning webs of fear, fascination, and a desperate hunger to understand what, if anything, the monarchy is hiding. Through all this, one voice remained conspicuously silent: Charles Spencer. Diana's younger brother, the custodian of Althorpe Estate, her childhood home, and now her final resting place, had not publicly commented on the situation. His silence, perhaps, said more than words ever could. Charles Spencer's legal authority over the estate looms larger than ever. Any disturbance at the island in the heart of Althorpe Estate, including the potential opening of Princess Diana's tomb, cannot move forward without his explicit consent. Yet Spencer has remained silent. No statements, no interviews, not even a whisper to the press. Privately, though, it's a storm of emotions. Sources close to the Spencer family report that Charles is grappling with a decision that goes beyond law or tradition. It's about a promise he made to his sister in death. One longtime family friend described his internal struggle as a moral crossroads of historic proportions. On one side, there's the growing call for transparency, a rising tide of royal historians, legal experts, and even sections of the public demanding clarity on Diana's death, autopsy, and burial. On the other side, there's the sanctity of silence, a sacred space Charles vowed would remain undisturbed, a space Diana herself once confided was her only true home. The weight of this decision is overwhelming. For Charles, it's not just about public curiosity or royal protocol, it's personal. He's long believed that the world failed Diana during her life, hounded by the paparazzi, betrayed by those closest to her, and consumed by a crown that never truly embraced her. To him, her tomb is not a global spectacle, but a symbol of peace, the only thing he could give her that was entirely hers. To open it now, he reportedly confided to a friend, would feel like letting the wolves back in. Meanwhile, within the palace walls, a different dynamic is playing out. Prince William, sources say, has leaned toward allowing a controlled investigation behind closed doors. He believes that the truth, whatever it may be, must outlive the rumors. He has told advisors that Diana belonged to the people as much as she belonged to the royal family. However, Prince Harry remains conflicted. Despite his strained relationship with the monarchy and his new life across the Atlantic, He reportedly fears that this act could desecrate, rather than honor, their mother's memory. "We lost her once already," a source quoted him. "I don't know if I can go through losing her again." As for King Charles, the man whose life was most profoundly altered by Diana's rise and fall, he has remained notably silent. For the first time in years, he has issued no formal guidance, cryptic remarks, or even a subtle nod to the matter in his public appearances. His silence has been interpreted by some as diplomatic and by others as cowardice. The tomb of Princess Diana remains undisturbed, its ancient stone glistening in the dew of early spring mornings. But for how long? Palace insiders confirm that the Royal Advisory Panel has authorized a 30-day window for an investigative committee to submit its final recommendation. During this period, all options, from non-invasive ground scans to a full legal exhumation, remain on the table. The countdown has begun. Outside Althorp, a quiet pilgrimage is taking place. Mourners arrive by the dozens, some from nearby villages, others from across the world. They gather at the gates near the perimeter of the lake, and even in small boats on the water. But no one dares approach the island. Some light candles, their flickering flames mirrored in the still waters below. Others carry signs with simple messages: "Let her rest. Truth matters. Diana forever." A few just stand there in complete silence, their eyes locked on the island that has held for nearly 3 decades more than just a body. It has held a nation's collective grief, a mother's love, and a mystery too deep to die. "We never stopped loving her," one woman whispered through tears. "And we never stopped searching for the truth." Earl Charles Spencer has long stood as one of the most quietly influential figures in the saga of Princess Diana's legacy. While the world watched the spectacle of Diana's life and mourned the tragedy of her death, it was her younger brother who stepped forward in the aftermath, not with grand gestures, but with a quiet authority rooted in family loyalty. Now, nearly 3 decades later, his role has never been more crucial or more conflicted. As whispers of a possible exhumation and formal investigation into Diana's burial begin to swell into official consideration, all eyes are turning to the man who, legally and symbolically, holds the keys to her resting place. For no decision regarding access to the island at the center of Althorp's ornamental lake can be made without his express consent. In this unprecedented moment, where monarchy, memory, and mystery converge, Charles Spencer finds himself at the epicenter of a moral dilemma that cuts deeper than any political or public pressure could. To understand the weight he carries today, one must go back to the early days following Diana's death in 1997. At her funeral, Spencer delivered a eulogy that remains etched in the collective memory of the nation. A blistering, heartfelt speech that gently but unmistakably called out the royal institution and the media that had hounded his sister. He promised then that Diana's legacy would be preserved in truth, and that her sons would be raised with the freedom and dignity she had been denied. That speech turned Charles from a grieving brother into a symbolic protector, a figure willing to stand against entrenched power in defense of his sister's humanity. It was Spencer who ultimately decided that Diana would be buried not in a royal crypt, but in the quiet, secluded island on the Althorp estate, the same estate where they had played as children, and where Diana had found brief moments of peace away from the storm of public life. He rejected the idea of Westminster Abbey, St. George's Chapel, and even the Spencer family tombs in favor of solitude. He argued that this would be a place of safety, beyond the reach of tourists, photographers, and those who had commodified Diana's life. This decision was both personal and strategic. It shielded her in death from the exposure she could never escape in life. But in doing so, it also created a mystery, an air of inaccessibility that has only deepened over time. Today, that same decision has placed Charles in an almost impossible position. Reports of the sealed vault discovered beneath the island, coupled with rising public speculation and official whispers of a royal-sanctioned inquiry, have thrust him into a spotlight he neither sought nor welcomes. Spencer's silence in recent weeks has spoken volumes. While palace spokespeople deliver careful statements and press releases shift the narrative subtly each day, Spencer has chosen not to engage at all. No interviews, no public commentary, not even a brief remark to the media. It's a silence that many interpret as resistance, others as profound deliberation. Privately, those close to him suggest that Spencer is agonizing over the decision. One family friend reportedly described him as a man caught between a promise to the living and a promise to the dead. On one side lies the growing pressure from historians, forensic experts, and the public for transparency. Calls for clarity on Diana's death, her burial, and the circumstances surrounding both have become louder than ever. These voices argue that an honest re-examination is not just warranted but necessary. They point to the inconsistencies, the sealed files, the unusually swift embalming process in Paris, and now, the discovery of a structure beneath her supposed resting place that no one can officially explain. They say that the people have a right to know, that the truth, if it can be found, should no longer be kept in the shadows. But on the other side, there is the sanctuary Charles believes he built for his sister. The lake island was never meant to be a monument. It was intended as a refuge, an eternal breakwater against the storm that raged throughout her life. For Charles, opening the tomb now feels less like an investigation and more like a violation. One source close to Althorp described his feelings bluntly. To him, this isn't about history or theory. It's about trust. Diana trusted him to keep her safe, even in death. That trust, to Charles, is sacred. Breaking it might satisfy the world's curiosity, but it could also mean surrendering the only part of Diana he's managed to protect all these years. The stakes are more than symbolic. Legal experts have confirmed that Spencer's rights over Althorp are ironclad. Despite the monarchy's influence, the crown cannot move forward with any physical disturbance of Diana's grave without his explicit written authorization. Even in the face of intense pressure from the palace, or potentially from Parliament, Spencer retains that final veto. But that power comes with enormous emotional cost. If he says yes, he risks betraying his sister's memory, at least in his own eyes. If he says no, he may be seen as obstructing justice, or worse, protecting secrets that were never his to keep. Complicating matters further are the differing positions within Diana's immediate family. Sources suggest that Prince William, now stepping more fully into the royal spotlight, is leaning toward a controlled private inquiry, one that would maintain dignity but pursue clarity. Harry, on the other hand, reportedly harbors deeper fears. His public and private comments in recent years have often reflected a sense of lingering trauma, unresolved grief, and distrust of the system that, in his view, failed his mother. For Harry, opening the tomb may feel like reopening a wound that never healed. For William, it may be a way of finally putting that wound to rest with truth. Caught between these competing views, Charles Spencer's silence becomes less about avoidance and more about the unbearable tension of his role. He is not merely a landowner or a nobleman with a family legacy to uphold. In the public eye, he is the last protector of Diana's memory, the person who chose her final resting place, the one who swore she would be left in peace. And now, with the world watching, that oath is being tested like never before. There is also the question of public expectation. Diana was not a private figure, despite her desires. She was loved by millions, some would say worshipped. Her story became a modern fable, one that continues to evolve. Many believe they have a right to the next chapter, to whatever truth lies hidden beneath the island on the lake. But Charles Spencer doesn't see her as a symbol. He sees her as a sister, a person who once confided in him, laughed with him, and asked for just one thing when her story was over: peace. That simple wish now feels like an impossible demand in the face of rising global attention and a royal family scrambling to manage its future. But for Spencer, it may still be the only thing that matters. Whether he ultimately consents to further investigation remains to be seen. He may be waiting for the Royal Advisory Panel's 30-day review period to conclude before making any public statements. Or he may simply never speak on it at all. Either way, the decision, when it comes, will be about more than access or legality. It will be a decision about loyalty, about legacy, and about the cost of silence in a world desperate for answers. As visitors continue to leave flowers by the lake and media teams hover just beyond the estate's wooded edge, Charles Spencer remains inside Althorp, alone with his thoughts, walking the same halls where he and his sister once played. Whether he chooses to open the gate or keep it locked, one thing is certain: no one will carry this burden but him.